Hello everyone, thank you so much for coming back. My name is Joanna and my passion is to help you get you through and past your limitations. These are going to be your messages for September. For those of you who are a regular for my channel, you'll notice I did not upload any August videos, hence why these videos are quite a bit longer. There was a lot of information that I channeled through. So if you can't watch it all at once, maybe break it into pieces. If you need to just get moving into the videos, I'll put a stamp down below so that you don't have to listen to the record to this part. But I want to say a few things. First and foremost, I want to say thank you. Thank you for being part of my channel. Thank you for being part of my journey. Thank you for always inspiring me and encouraging me to be the best at what I do. And you'll notice my work is changing. It has been changing for a while, but it's more apparent than any time before that the way I work is shifting and changing. So consequently, over the next few months, you will notice that the way my videos are coming out are a little bit different, or the way the messages are coming out in my videos are a little bit different. There seems to be a greater emphasis on healing, so there will be some energetic healing that will come through. I will talk about that more a little bit later on a different video, but more than anything, there seems to be a bit of a shift in terms of how I receive messages and also what types of messages want to come through me. So if you have watched my videos for a while, you may see a bit of a change. I feel to me, it's incredible. The change is always good. Change is not always easy. But nonetheless, I feel the way things are going to progress going forward is the messages will be maybe even much more meaningful, even though I find that they're meaningful anyways, and many of you find my messages meaningful. I feel it's going to be even more meaningful. There's going to be a lot more that I will be channeling through to you. Speaking of channeling, I have noticed more and more that I am beginning to use less and less visuals, as in cards, and much more channeling. So you will notice in some of the videos that I have cards, but I barely talk about the cards. I show them here and there, but most of the messages are channeled. I feel that's eventually how my messages will come through. They will probably be mostly channeled with maybe some visuals, some tools, but long time ago Spirit told me that eventually my work is going to consist of channeling information and not really reading cards. So you'll see that coming through more and more as time goes on. And is there anything else I wanted to say? Yes, the 6-month messages, which are on Vimeo from July until the end of this year, there's a link down there below for you. And more than anything, if this doesn't make sense to you because it is general, then listen to it down the road, or even end of September or even October. I often mention that these messages flow way beyond a certain month, so I wouldn't be surprised if the messages you hear in September cover September, October, and November, even towards the end of the year. So keep that in mind. Also, some messages may not make sense to you at all because they are general, and I can only cover so many scenarios in a general situation. With that said, if anything resonates with you, or if you feel pulled towards having more of a personal session with me, that information is down below, and I trust you know how to find me. And again, I want to thank you for being part of my channel. Without you, I wouldn't do this. My gratitude goes out to you, and I love hearing your comments. I love reading your comments, and yeah, I hope you enjoy these videos and all the other videos that follow. And with that said, let's move on into each individual sign. Hello, beautiful Sagittarians. These are going to be your messages for the next few weeks, or until the end of September, thereabouts. It'll probably move more into October for some of you. I am recording this somewhere towards the end of August or middle of August, so some of these messages may be pertinent to you or may have been pertinent to you in the month of August, if you are still listening in August, and some of these messages will be more recognizable to you by the time of September, and for some of you, October. The general feeling that I get for the Sagittarius sign is a feeling of completion, a feeling of expansion, and a feeling of purging things out. So I almost said it feels like a lot of mess, but no, it's not that you're going to have a lot of mess. It feels like a lot of cleanup time. So some of you may literally be going through a physical move where you have to clean out a lot of SHIT that has been, kind of hidden places that were not easily accessible. So clearing out junk, physically clearing out junk. For others of you, and I feel this is more the message for you guys, it's clearing stuff out energetically. So I can use the word declutter, cleanse, purge, filter things out, purge. Again, the word purging wants to come out. So if this doesn't make sense to you right now, then probably by the end of October, this will be more significant to you. I always say there is nothing bad happening. Purging is a good thing, but purging often isn't very comfortable. Just like think about when you were sick, you might have had a stomach flu, and because of it, your body was purging out toxins from the body, and that doesn't feel good, but that's your body's way of getting rid of something it doesn't agree with. So it's a beautiful metaphor, as far as I'm concerned, of the purgative scenarios that some of you will be or are already experiencing. So decluttering not only your physical existence, but more than anything, your emotional existence. And the interesting thing is that whenever we declutter what is inside, the world outside of us always complements us. In other words, when we shift vibration, the world outside of us begins to shift. It begins to shift its scenario. So this also symbolizes a time of change. And I feel it's a time of great change for many of you. And I'm going to say this again, and I'm noticing that with these particular messages for September, probably almost every single sign, I make these grand statements. And then I follow by saying, I don't usually make these grand statements because I try to, kind of be on a normal level. So to say that you are going through big changes is not a small thing to say, but these are changes that for some of you, these changes will take effect immediately. And for others of you, these changes will transpire over time, all the way up until, I want to say, beginning of next year. So there's a purging time, if I can call it that, which means you are decluttering, you are cleansing, you are detoxifying, and that also means detoxifying your body. Your body may be purging things out of its system. So for some of you, what's coming in is any kind of skin conditions or rashes, any sort of things like that. Bearing in mind, I'm not a doctor. This is not a diagnosis. But any kind of conditions where things are erupting from the skin, chances are these are connected to you purging things out on an emotional level. And that is how your body is responding to it. So if you have been, especially if you're someone very sensitive, apparently, if you're someone very sensitive, and you have been holding on to feelings, emotions, if you have been suppressing, the chances are your skin will show that out. It's the energy needs to get out somewhere, so it can often show through skin. So that's interesting because I've never made that connection before. So this is something that I'm just channeling, and that's going to be maybe for one or two, hopefully not more. But if it helps you, then I am very grateful. Obviously, with anything medical, anything of that sort, anything I say, never listen to it until you check it out and it makes sense to you through other sources. I'm just kind of bringing that up for your information. So the other thing that I wanted to say is some of you may want to purge things out. So we'll talk about what some of those things may be, but if you've been holding on to stagnant energy in whatever shape or form, thoughts, feelings, beliefs, or otherwise, things in your physical possession or in your physical life, if those things have been robbing you of life, so to speak, or robbing you of energy, then those are the things you might want to gently move out of your life. And I feel that this is a roundabout way of saying to some of you, it's time for change. And change is necessary. Through change we grow, and change isn't always comfortable, but holding on to something that is no longer working, holding on to something that is stagnating is not gonna give you anything other than what you already have. So the card change, it pretty much sums everything up. Okay, so I feel this is a time of great change for most people, at least in my work, and I'm seeing this with almost every sign. There is this huge focus here on clearing stuff out, and it's not just one or two signs. It's pretty consistent with all the signs. Maybe it's the energies, maybe it's the air we're breathing, maybe it's, you know, consciousness shifting and changing, 3D, 5D, 4D, all of those things combined. All of those components have an effect on our own individual life. So each person will go through these transitions in our own unique way. But one thing is for sure, change is on the way. And practicing changing your thoughts is necessary in order to get to your achievement. When you practice thinking the way you've always been thinking, you will get what you always have gotten. So again, this is a roundabout way of saying it's time to change your thoughts. It's time to perhaps change how you look at things. And there are changes. We'll talk about what those may mean for you. But this is a very purgative time and a culminating time, which means, to me, culminating time means you are ready to wrap things up. And when we wrap things up, we finalize it and we put it where it belongs, you know, somewhere on a shelf, and then we kind of disconnect from that and we move on. So this is also an indication that some of you will be leaving some things behind. Generally not things that you want, not things that are working for you. Generally these will be things, or people for that matter, that have not been working for a while. And when I say for a while, I'm seeing 2 or 3. So I don't know if that's 2 or 3 months or 2 or 3 years. I don't think it's 2 or 3 days, or 2 or 3 weeks for that matter. It's a longer period of time. If something hasn't been working for a longer period of time, then chances are it's either time for it to go, or life will present itself in such a way that you will be asked to let it go. And I don't know, you know, that could be a gazillion different ways. Point is, there is no room for where you're going, in terms of where you're going, for things that rob you of your attention, that rob you of your precious energy. In other words, where you're going, and it sounds to me like it's happiness. You don't have time to hold on to things that slow you down. And of course, time being figure of speech, because in reality, who cares about time? I mean, it's not like, you know, it's not like we have to get a lesson by tomorrow or else. It doesn't work that way. It's all, you know, it's all just shift of perspective. So with that said, the moment I wrote the word Sagittarius, I clearly heard number 11. So many things mean different things mean different things to me in terms of my vocabulary with spirit. But what I felt with you was that this is not only a time of completion, but it's also time of setting critical boundaries. Now, that's not usually what I get with number 11, so that's interesting in and of itself. That whatever your boundaries are is all for the preparation for you to be in a space of what I want to call is like a balance scale, balance. So we are essentially moving in certain aspects from this harmony or this ease to a place of harmony and to a place of much more ease. And as a result of that, or as a result of this movement, we're letting some things go. Any stagnating relationships, any outstanding bills you haven't paid for a long time, and you've been kind of deflecting paying them, chances are you might want to get it all wrapped up. And it's almost like a year end. It feels like very much like a year end where you're tying up loose ends because tomorrow is a brand new year and you want to start fresh. That's really what it feels like for me. Now, your guys' birthday is November. Okay, we're not close. We're not in November yet. So, well, let me rephrase that. Your cycle starts November, end of November. It is quite probable that whatever it is that you are decluttering is getting you ready for your next cycle year. So what does a cycle year to me mean? It means that you are you are starting new on a certain level. And if that message wasn't enough, you have a card that says birth and expansion. And when I was shuffling the cards, this one flew out 1,000,000 miles an hour. So if you're a female and have given birth, chances are you'll know that birth is or can be quite messy. It's not a comfortable thing to go through. Oftentimes, there is a drawn-out labor process, so it's not very convenient, and it's often where we feel very vulnerable. It's also a beautiful time because you're birthing something new. So there's an analogy here of birth and expansion that is connected to a human birth, and that is there is something wonderful on the horizon. There is something about to be birthed. As a process of birthing, things might get a little bit messy, but at the end of the day, you have this amazing baby, a newborn, a new life. So that's how I want to present it to you. And again, to me, it's not a small thing. It represents many things. One of the biggest things that it represents to me is you birthing a brand new you. For some of you, this literally means birthing a project, birthing something of your own, or birthing a baby over the next few months. So if you are not pregnant and you do not want to get pregnant, but there's a possibility you could get pregnant, be mindful if you have unprotected sexual encounter that this is going to be a very fertile time for you. For those of you who are not in the age bracket of where you could get pregnant, then this is an expansion or birth in terms of you birthing an aspect of yourself or birthing something new into your life in terms of project, okay? For some of you, it's you birthing, building a new home. So there is, for few of you, this literally will mean you will decide to build your own home, as in from scratch. I'm sure you're not going to do it with your own hands. You might. You're going to contract somebody to do it. So that's for few. For others of you, there is the metaphor of building your own home, building your house, which means you might be moving to a new apartment, you might be moving to a new place, you might be buying a property, you might be considering buying property. There's an emphasis here on building your own nest. And even as I'm saying the word nest, so females, for those of you who want to get pregnant, or if you are feeling nesting, the nesting feeling, their chances are quite high that you might get pregnant over the next 2 to 3 months. So I don't get these messages that often. I mean, I do, but this one is coming pretty clear. The other part of it is if you don't want your girlfriend to be pregnant, then make sure that doesn't happen. Protect yourself. So if you are a male and you don't want any more children, you know, make sure that you deal with it accordingly. Generally, more females listen to this than male, but there might be one male out there that needs to protect himself. Is there anything else that I want to see before I move on? Yes. Life is really exercise of trust. Let's face it. There's a whole lot of trusting we have to do in order for us, you know, to have somewhat, you know, of a peaceful existence. But I will say this, the next little while is going to be an exercise of trust for many of you. And trust in terms of trusting in your intuition that what you're doing is the right thing, okay? Trusting in the fact that the universe will provide to you even though it may not look like it today. Trusting in your ability to attract whatever it is that you are after, but you may not be feeling good enough yourself yet in order to attract it. There's a whole lot of trusting that is going on or needs to be going on. So what does trust look like? Well, trust looks possibly like this. You have an intent, you know what it is, and you release the worry about when and how it's going to happen. That's an example of trust. This is typically what I see with my clients, and this is generally one of the more difficult things to do because we humans tend to attach ourselves to everything. So interestingly enough, you're going through an exercise of detaching. I mean, clearing out, you know, moving things out, getting rid of stagnant energy. That's detaching. That's not clinging. That's detaching. So as I'm saying this, I'm realizing that there's a message in this. In order to feel in balance, we are neither needy or repelling. So if you have had challenges with neediness, needing somebody to love you, or of course we all need somebody to love us, that's not what I mean, but needing someone to love you, otherwise your life is not good, or needing a certain I don't know, status in order to feel good. You guys understand what neediness is. If that has been the case, then that means you have had a heavy reliance on something outside of you in order to make you feel whole. Okay, so that's a very needy place. We all know it doesn't really work very well, not long term. The opposite side of that is us repelling. And we all know how to repel things, self-sabotage. So sometimes the very thing that we want is the very thing we end up repelling because we believe for some reason or another we're not able to have it. We're not worth it. We do not feel valued. We do not feel worthy. Whatever stories we have in our mind, and we have many stories, you know, we end up pushing things away. So if you have been pushing things away in the past, if you have been Mr. or Miss Independent, and the independence was stemming from your need to feel safe and secure because at some point you were not independent, or you observe a parent, for example, who was over-dependent on somebody else, you might have a tendency to push people away just to make sure that you are in charge of your own life. In other words, there would be no one around you to take that away from you. Okay, but that's fear. Either of those scenarios are fear-based. What I'm noticing here is that as this message keeps going on, you are in a process where you can bridge those two extremes and come into some sort of a middle, whatever the middle is for you. And we can discuss what that is in a moment. So this doesn't feel like a small thing to me, and I actually have this expansion in my heart chakra. Like I feel like I'm just gonna literally, I feel like I just want to rip myself open because something wants to come through me. So another word that's coming through is, or phrase, this is about you rediscovering yourself. For some of you, for the very first time. What do I mean by that? So Rediscovering means that you've done it before. For some of you, you have lost yourself. In other words, you have become somebody other than who you are for whatever reason. You were too afraid, you were too needy, you were too this or to that, or not enough this or not enough that. We do that all the time. Well, yeah, we do it on a regular basis until we become more aware. The problem is when we stay there, we end up compromising the very things that we are after. So you may have accepted at some point conditions which were below your expectations, but you chose to accept them because you felt there would be nothing better, or you were not worthy enough to experience something better. Whatever the story is, you're coming to a point right now where you're beginning to realize that whatever that feeling is, whatever your truth is up until this point, you're not putting so much value into it anymore. And it's an interesting way of saying it. What this essentially means is your insecurities, what you felt strongly in terms of who you are, you're not putting as much value in your insecurities anymore. Isn't that interesting? Just interesting the way it's being put together. You're not putting as much value in your insecurity anymore. To me, it's another way, a beautiful way of saying you're not giving it much attention. It's still there, but you're not giving it much attention. You're not feeding it with your stories. And when we don't feed our insecurities with our stories, eventually these insecurities begin to dissipate, because in order for something to thrive, it has to be constantly fed, right? When you recognize how you feed your insecurity, you can then stop the process of feeding that insecurity. You may not stop their insecurity right there and then, but you will stop the process that feeds the insecurity. It's no different than can I give an example, please? It's no different than a weed. If you starve weed of nutrients and water, the weed will die. I hate looking at it from that perspective, because that to me, it's living organism. But anyway, you guys get the picture. In other words, it'll eventually starve, and there will be nothing to feed it, so it will die. It will shift its energy, and it'll become, it'll just be absorbed by earth. And that's a metaphor. That's a metaphor. That's a metaphor of you transforming your insecurities. And whatever your insecurities are, particularly the ones that make you feel like you are not good enough, not special enough, not beautiful enough, not good looking enough, not smart enough, not lean enough, not long legs, and whatever stories we tell ourselves, whatever we feel are our limitations. In order for limitations to remain our limitations, they have to be fed. Okay? So this is beautiful for me to observe, because it's saying to me that many of you are becoming much more conscious. You're becoming much more conscious of who you are in terms of how you commit to yourself. What does that mean? The commitment you have to yourself, the relationship you have with yourself, and I've said this before, is generally a very similar, if not the same, relationship we have with either another person or with life in general. So the moment you begin to have a different relationship with yourself, a more loving relationship with yourself, a more caring relationship with yourself, a more inclusive relationship with yourself, the more you begin to value you as a system, okay? Insecurities can't thrive in that. Insecurities thrive in lack, okay? So by becoming conscious and being able to recognize the thoughts and the actions that feed your insecurity, you can shift how you feed your insecurity, or better yet, you can completely stop feeding your insecurity. Chances are, if you're on autopilot, and you are, we all are to some degree, we do things without thinking. But just because we do things without thinking, just because we do things on automatic, it doesn't mean it has any less effect in determining who we are. As a matter of fact, quite the opposite is true. If you are reacting to something, then it's coming from your truth. This is what you believe. So if you're insecure about something, notice how you get triggered, okay? When you get triggered, notice what piece of you is being triggered. Which piece of you says, hey, I'm here, pay attention, this doesn't feel good, okay? And then begin to feel it. And I feel like I'm going off on a tangent, but I feel like I'm supposed to, okay? When you begin to feel your insecurity, you will begin to really understand what this is about for you. Chances are, if you're listening to this, you have a tendency to push things away. You have a tendency to not want to look at it. You have a tendency to want to say, no, this doesn't feel good. How do I fix it? The problem with that is that the very reason why it is an insecurity and the very reason why it is a trigger is because it's been festering all this time. It has not been resolved. So a lot of this is about, I will use the term inner child work, shadow work. When I say inner child, this is something you might find very, what's the word I want to use? Very helpful. Whenever you are triggered with your insecurities, and then you get mad because you think you should be over it, rather than getting mad, instead think of a little person with these insecurities. Think of a 5 or 6 year old child that has these insecurities. And then observe how you would be towards that 5 or 6 year old child if or when he or she would be having insecurities. Chances are 99.9% of you will realize that the very thing you'd want to do is you'd want to hold that child and let that child know that everything is okay and the child is safe. That's what you need. So, next time you have an insecurity being triggered, perhaps deal with it from this perspective. Perhaps rather than trying to beat yourself up or saying, whatever, I shouldn't feel this or that. Imagine yourself being 5 or 6 years old and watching yourself having that insecurity. And then notice what you would need as a 5 or 6 year old person right at that moment. What would you need more than anything at that moment? And then imagine giving yourself that, exactly that. And inner child work is extremely powerful. I've worked with it in hypnotherapy for the last 15 years. It is extremely fast working, even though I don't want to put a time frame on it. It really digs into our subconscious aspects. So it has a profound effect when done on regular basis, when done consistently. And just when you get one layer figured out, another layer comes up. So I don't ever want you to think that in terms of insecurity, you'll never have any. If you can get to that point, God bless you. Tell me what the recipe is. Chances are, for most of us, it's more about that middle point. It's not having any insecurities. It's not being terrified of our insecurities, but being somewhere in the middle where some of the insecurities are there, but they don't have the effect on you that they used to have, right? Now, that's not a terrible way to have an insecurity, one that doesn't really affect you, one that is more an idea you have, but you don't necessarily believe it. It's just something that you've been told a long time ago, but it's not really you anymore. You could probably deal with that, right? So don't aim for having no fears. Don't aim for having no insecurities. Don't aim for having no hard times. That'll never happen. It'll happen once you shed this body. Then you won't have all these limitations. It's about you shifting your perspective and you shifting your connection to whatever that is, energetically speaking. So it doesn't have the same power over you that it once did. And I feel this is really what you're going through. Many of you are going through that process right now. So each of you individually will hear things differently. Listen to it end of September, maybe even middle of October, and see how this applies to you. Let me go through some of the cards that we have. So what is working for you? The Otter came up, and that's an interesting creature because the Otter is a water sign, by the way. This is a water symbol. And the Otter is very curious. There's a lot of curiosity here. So what I'm getting from, and this is emotion, right? So in order for one to be curious and act under curiosity, one has to have some level of trust, right? Some level of risk taking. So what I'm feeling here is that you are at the point right now emotionally where you are much more curious to take more risks in whatever capacity. More risks in terms of taking a chance on something new and unfamiliar, taking a chance on a new job, perhaps taking a chance on new creative idea, perhaps taking a chance on a completely different, completely out of your type relationship. Whatever the taking chance is about, you are much more likely to move past your comfort zone this time more than any other time. And I'm asking in the background, why this time more than any other time? And I'm hearing the word conviction. You are coming to a point of your own existence where your own inner conviction about you becomes more solid. That's in plain English, or plainer English, basically says you are beginning to completely and fundamentally accept yourself for who you are. No matter what funny things you have about you, likes, dislikes, inferiorities, doesn't matter. You begin to accept yourself as you are, period. As you are, 100% as you are. And from that space, you are then beginning your new life, which means you are coming from the place where you are no longer lacking anything, okay? Yes, sure, you may not have enough money right now, may not have a relationship that you want, you may not have the physical things that you desire, but internally you come to the realization that as a being you lack nothing. You lack absolutely nothing. Everything is available to you in the universe, and the only thing that is preventing you from having it right now is your limitations. Okay, so it's time to shed some of the limitations, or at least to shed some light on some of those limitations. So I love the curiosity. To me, it's also expanding boundaries a little bit when it comes to emotional commitments. You are in this with this energy, you are much more likely to let someone in. So if you've been someone who has been kind of keeping to the side and not really letting people in, usually we have value issues when that happens, then chances are that you will be letting that go a little bit. Remember, the aim here is neither what's the word, please? The word just totally left me. Polarities. It's to be somewhere in the middle. It's to have that middle point. What may be tripping you up? So if there's anything that you might want to look at, what might that be? The mouse is an interesting creature because the mouse moves very fast. Mouse is very nervous. In this deck, to me, with this card, it symbolizes to me putting your attention and focus on things that are ultimately either out of your control or unimportant. So not a wise use of your energy. Let's call it thoughts, okay? It is also about looking at things from certain perspectives. So this mouse here, cute little creature, is looking in my direction, but there's all these colors behind this mouse, but she's not looking in that direction. So that means perhaps wherever she's looking, it's not in her reality, or it's not in the mouse's reality. But it's not that it's not in her reality. It's because she's not facing it, she's not looking at it, she's not focusing on it. So the message with this card is make sure you focus on the right things. What means right? That depends on you. Whatever is right for you. Generally, when you have a very clear intention, and I find that most people don't, so that's interesting. If you don't have a clear intention, it's like having a map and being all packed up, but you have no idea where you're going. You're not moving, right? So you could be spinning in circles, but if you have no intention, you have no direction, you're not going. So once you have an intention, then you're more likely to know what right move is for you, because you will look at your choice and you will see whether it's corresponding with your intention. Okay, giving up is not a choice. And it's interesting because it is a choice. It's a choice you have, but I feel like Spirit is saying giving up is not an option here. So if you have given up on yourself, if you have given up on the idea that you're going to be happy, successful, it is not one of those times where you should be doing that. And of course, never, I always say there's no shoulds, but this message is coming very strongly. So it is for some of you, and some of you need to hear it. You are birthing something right now. You're in the process of birthing. There's a brand new beginning for many of you just around the corner. And I feel this message is very similar to me. So notice if any other sign draws your attention, because you might find that the message is duplicated, but in a different sign. Okay, there's a new beginning for many of you, particularly relationship wise. For many of you, others it will be job and things like that. So make sure you focus on the right. Make sure you focus on the right things. What do I want? Okay, so what's leaving behind? This is interesting. The Sun came up with the Priestess. So does that mean you're leaving clarity behind? Not at all. What this is telling me is that in a very recent past, a month or two ago, you had a lot of clarity. You had a lot of clarity about something in your life, and this is why there is this process of purging. Okay, the intuition to me says that whatever clarity you have received, what's the word I want to use, please? It's almost like it brought to surface a choice that you need to make. That's how it's being presented to me, and I'm trying not to over analyze it. So I'm just going to leave it for now. See if I come back to it later with a better explanation. If not, then I'm supposed to leave it the way it is. So are you leaving intuition behind? Are you leaving clarity behind? Oh, not at all. It means that in a recent past, something became very clear to you, and as a result of that, you either decided to make a choice or decision, or you realize there's a choice or decision to be made. Okay, so that's happened, and I guess now you will be in the process of the decision making. The decision making may be happening over the next little while, but you knew you had a choice to make. So this to me symbolizes clarity. The reason why it's in the leaving behind position is because it's showing me it just happened. That is how I got the message. Strength in reverse, Queen of Wands in reverse, and Ace of Cups in reverse. Okay, those are all components to me that connect to you purging, what it is that you're purging. So the Strength in reverse to me symbolizes not feeling strong inside. I mean, I think that's pretty self-explanatory. Okay. Again, any sort of challenges around beliefs you have about you, not being worthy, not being enough. I don't want to keep on saying the same thing, because I think you guys know what this means. There will be some clarity around that, but not only clarity. I see like the image I have is something is pulling weeds out of you. Maybe some of you will be attending some ceremony or some practice where a healer or someone like that will be helping you remove some things. It's kind of mysterious here what I'm seeing, but I'm gonna leave it at that, because I think it could be presented in different ways, but I'm just gonna leave it at that. This is just symbolizing to me this is on the way out. You feeling like this is on its way out. Ace of Cups in reverse, always to me, my symbol, to Joanna, who's not a tarot reader, it always symbolizes to me purging. It's purging out old energies and detoxification. So Again, similar message. You might be going through a detox program. You might be detoxing from drug abuse or some other substance. You might be detoxing from a addictive relationship or addictive aspect of a personality you've had. The Queen of Wands, it's obviously a fire element. This is an aspect of you that you are not connected with. So this is passion, this is love, this is creativity, this is the feminine aspect of those aspects of you. This is telling me that you are not in charge, or at least you haven't felt in charge. And that is all very closely tied to your sense of value. Any feelings of stagnation around, creativity, anything of that sort, being passionate, holding yourself back in a sexually, that's on its way out. So when I say this is a purging time, I am not kidding. And you are in the space energetically where you are, it's like you're being conceived. It's interesting. It's like you're being conceived and you're going to be given birth to. So if you can kind of imagine yourself from that analogy, then you can probably get an idea of what that's like. Okay. This is a message, the energy transmission. This is a message for those of you who are healers. You are transmitting healing energy through you. And as a result of that, you are also getting healing. So this is a message or a call for those of you who are healers in order to, and the message is, or the call is to accept your healing abilities. And we don't heal with just energy. I mean, yes, energy is everywhere available to everyone. We are energy. This is healing with words. This is healing with a kind touch. This is healing with a friendly gesture. This doesn't have to be a healing type scenario, but there is a connection here to those of you who perhaps didn't want to accept their healing abilities because you lack worth, or you lacked, your value was lacking. So this is acceptance. This is also a message that says Spirit is working with you, for those of you who believe that. And energetic transmissions also happen through sleep. So if you have wild dreams, or you have unusual dreams, or if you are having out-of-body experience or astral projections, then that's also spiritual work. You're doing a lot of spiritual work during sleep. Okay. And I think that's all I want to say. Is there anything else I want to give you? The sun actually appeared twice. Okay. So this is kind of like the catalyst card. It's no different than sun from the tarot deck, to me anyway. It symbolizes harvest. It symbolizes clarity. It symbolizes, when there is sun, there is no shadow, right? Again, aspect of shadow is being brought forward, which means many of you are working through your shadow selves. But for me to see this, it's beautiful. It's absolutely beautiful. I think that's what I want to leave with you. Yeah, the idea of addictions comes up again. Any sort of addictive behavior from the way you speak to yourself, out loud or otherwise, to the way you are addicted to something or someone. Could be myriad of things. Chances are many of you will be reducing that quite a bit. And as a result of that, something else will come into your life. So I hope this makes sense. If it doesn't, I always say listen to it later. Chances are quite high it will make sense to you. The messages are not really time bound, so I always say, give it way more than just the month that it's for. They seem to be much more that way these days, and it's probably going to happen that way going forward. So one day I may be recording messages where there is no time, time limit, but you hear it whenever you hear it, either resonates or it doesn't resonate with you. But if it does resonate with you, do comment. I love reading all your comments. I read every single one. I don't necessarily respond, but I read every single one. And take care of yourself. Make sure that you are well hydrated, that you are well rested, and that you are nice and ready to receive. And that in itself is a message for you. And with that said, if you would like a private session with me, that information is down below for you. I look forward to seeing or hearing you if that's the case. If not, I look forward to seeing you in the next video or next series. And until then, good luck and take care.